Now from Washington, the Inside Scoop. All the news the government does not want you to hear. Now, here's your host on the Inside Scoop, Mark Levine.
Good evening, America. Welcome to the Inside Scoop. I'm Mark Levine, your host, former congressional attorney. And my guest today is Sandy Liddy Bourne. She's the Vice President for Policy and Strategy for the Heartland Institute. Now, she's not speaking on behalf of the Heartland Institute tonight. She's speaking on her own behalf with her own views. Sandy, welcome to the Inside Scoop.
Thank you very much, and I wore my rose-colored glasses just for you.
Well, sometimes I think Republicans see the world through rose-colored glasses. I, of course, served as a congressional attorney for the Democrats. Sandy Liddy Bourne has a father more famous than she. His name is G. Gordon Liddy. And as you may well know, he got in trouble over a little something called Watergate. It's about 40 years ago and is currently 30 years ago, I guess, 35, and is a radio talk show host. One of the things I want to explore today, Sandy, and I want to invite our listeners to explore the question too, is the psychology of Democrats and Republicans. Now, not that you agree with everything the Republican Party does, and I don't agree with everything the Democratic Party does, but I think it's fair to say you're pretty much a Republican tried and true. Is that fair?
I am born and bred true blue Republican.
Okay.
I'm probably a rare breed of a compassionate conservative, but I support tough love when it comes to policy.
See, and now me as pretty much a born and bred Democrat, we have a hard time understanding that oxymoron, compassionate conservative. It seems to us the very definition of a conservative means that if people are poor and can't achieve something in life and have trouble, they should just die of starvation. Isn't that conservatism?
No, in fact, conservatism believes more in providing a hand up rather than a hand out. And you can look at that when the 1994-1996 Congress passed welfare reform with President Clinton. At the time, the policies were such that we were developing generations of people who were living off of government rather than earning a fair wage for themselves. We brought forth a more of a hands up, give them some education, give them the ability to save money, own property, and work themselves out of welfare. And that's a good example of what a compassionate conservative can do.
Well, let me tell you, I actually supported welfare reform. That may surprise you. The Democratic Party was somewhat split on the issue. Bill Clinton supported it. I'm more, I guess, of a Clinton Democrat than a Maxine Waters Democrat. But it seems to me that conservatives, one of the things they really believe in, though, is no real safety net. That if you're not succeeding, that the government shouldn't help you get a job, shouldn't help you get an education, shouldn't help you get food, shouldn't help you get shelter on your head, that conservatives really care about fetuses. But once they're born, you're pretty much on your own, and you just have to deal with circumstances as they are.
Well, I think that's Democrat rhetoric. That is absolutely not the case. We're probably the most charitable group that you can see. We believe in developing personal wealth. We believe in the rule of law. We develop in property rights. And when you can develop personal wealth, then you should reach out and provide and help another. But you teach them how to provide for themselves. Nobody wants to see anybody fail. I can't think of a single person, a politician, or anyone who believes in democracy that wants to see one single person fail. What we argue with are policies or political decisions that hold people back. And so that's why I use the welfare reform as a good example. The policies prior to the 1990s were holding people down in poverty, in particular African Americans.
Well, let's talk about a distinction between Clinton welfare reform and Bush welfare reform, because there is, of course, a distinction. Under Clinton welfare reform, mothers that went to work did get child care for their children. Under Bush welfare reform, there's no child care. So the woman has a choice. Either she leaves the child home alone, age 5, age 6, I'm not sure how they survive, and works, or she takes care of her child and forfeits any check. So this, to me, is saying to the woman, you have a choice. You choose your children or your work, and either way, the child loses.
Well, that's absolutely not true. If you fill out your 1040 Schedule A taxes, like I do every year, I'm one of these few people that actually fills out the tax form herself, you get tax credits for providing care or to give to a provider for your children. You get that taken off in your taxes up to the age of 13.
Yes,
up to the age of 13.
but poor people don't earn enough to get that tax credit. One of the things that Bill Clinton did was provide that
then you have
to kids.
low-income credits. They're all in there.
And
it's
the
all in
Republican
there.
Congress has been cutting all of those. And do you support that?
They're all still in there. They
Do you
haven't
support
been cut
cutting
out at
them
all.
the way the Republican Congress has done?
I think that when you're of a certain income level and you're trying to grow, and when you're at the very, very bottom, you want incentives to move up out of the bottom. What we don't want are to have policies that hold you there.
See, it seems
and
to
so
me, yeah.
when we first put the welfare to work into place, we certainly did put in provisions for child care, and it wasn't just
Bill Clinton signed that bill.
Yeah, and it was also the Republican Congress
but then
under the
they took
leadership
it
of
out.
Newt
But
Gingrich
then they
that
took it
got
out.
it done.
But then they took it
Well,
out.
I can't help this late do-nothing Congress that expanded government and everything else.
Okay, so you are not a fan of the Republican Congress under George Bush from 2001 to 2006.
I am not a fan of a do-nothing Congress, whether it's Republican or Democrat, that can get nothing done
And you think this
under their
Congress,
own principles.
under Bush,
this Congress,
that put us in a massive deficit?
This Democrat Congress that has
Well, we've had
Pelosi
Democrat
right now.
Congress for about 4 months.
Yeah, and it's
All right,
lousy.
The last 6 years.
Number two,
just tell me about the last 6 years. Do you
the
support
Congress prior to that,
Yes.
the reason why the Congress turned over is because the Republicans also, I believe, gave it away.
So you agree with me that the Republican Congress, they were not fiscally conservative at all?
They were not.
Massive spending, massive deficits, huge amount of money on things like the bridge to nowhere.
Any good fiscal
corporate corruption.
conservative would tell you that that last Congress, prior to Pelosi taking over, they were very upset with the expansion of government. And
I'm glad we agree
spending.
on that. Now, one of the things Pelosi did when she came into power is she set up a pay-as-you-go system. Democrats believe that any money you spend, whether on Iraq or anything else, you have to pay for. Now, one of the
Right, and
things
her
that George
Congress
Bush has
is
done,
just as guilty of putting in earmarks for things.
one of the things that George Bush did on the war in Iraq is something that presidents did in World War II. When we wanted to go to war, we paid higher taxes. Same is true in the Civil War, World War I, heck, even the Revolutionary War. They were raising money on the states to fund the war. George Bush has said, I want to go to war in Iraq, and I don't want to pay for it. I want generations future to pay for it. I want your children to pay for it. They have to pay twice the taxes because they have to pay back this big debt. Do you support that decision, or do you think we should have raised taxes to go to Iraq?
You're reinventing what happened here.
not
We
saying
got
we paid
hit.
for the
We got
war.
hit on September 11th.
I'm just asking if we should pay
We
for
put
it.
in a lot of incentives to keep our economy going. We did. The purpose of al-Qaeda attacking the United States, and particularly hitting New York, was to hurt our economy, not to wound people, but to really cripple our economy. So the president then put in incentives to keep our economy going. That's why he put the tax cuts in.
So
and
you
that's,
support the massive debt?
So that's what, no,
When the Japanese
no, you're
attacked
putting
us on
words in my mouth.
the Japanese attacked us on Pearl Harbor. Franklin Delano Roosevelt could have said, they're trying to hurt us, we need huge tax cuts, but
Okay.
instead he said, I want to pay for this war.
And it led
Why
us
do
to-
you support Bush's decision instead of FDR? Do you think FDR was wrong?
Let me
Should-
finish my thought, Mark.
Yeah, should he have cut his taxes?
One, he should have cut taxes
FDR.
because we found, not FDR, I'm talking about Bush. We learned under Ronald Reagan that when you cut taxes, the economy grows.
So FDR was wrong to raise taxes in World War II.
FDR at the time, when you look at our economy, put into place, because we had the Depression, he put into place the big deal. That
New Deal, right.
the New Deal. That expanded government. Johnson took it much, much further than any of us wanted it to go.
I'm just asking whether you think it's right to raise taxes in wartime or not.
And you're correct. In every war up to this point, every president, in some way, shape, or form, either one, expanded spending, either by raising taxes or making revenues available, or two, they expanded the size of government. And Bush is no different. He expanded the size of government.
Do you support raising taxes to pay for it, or do you support the massive debt?
I support cutting taxes.
Okay, so you
so that
support
we can
massive
raise,
debt.
because, let me finish, because under Reagan, we learned that if we cut taxes, we provide incentives for revenue growth. And that's exactly
Now, wait, okay.
what happened.
I want to understand your argument. What you're saying is that when we cut taxes, we get more taxes, and that's why
We get more revenue.
We get more revenue. Okay. So let me
Revenue. There's a
understand
difference
this.
between
Let me
revenue and
understand this, Because
taxes.
under Bill Clinton, we had the largest surpluses ever in American history. Under George Bush, we have the worst deficits ever in American history. Your theory, if you're correct, would mean we'd have great surpluses, because George Bush gave great tax cuts, and your theory is if the government takes less money in, it gets more money
Here
in.
is the problem. He expanded government at the same time that he was cutting taxes,
pay
and
for it?
that's why we have the deficit
Should he
that we
pay
have.
for it?
I don't think he should have expanded government.
Okay.
That's the problem.
But here's
that's
my
where you and I
question.
disagree. Do you think he should have expanded government to do this?
No, I didn't support the war in Iraq, did you?
Well, no, it has nothing to do with the war.
It's expensive. It's $1 trillion.
Do you think it's not just the war in Iraq? We also had to respond to being hit on September 11th. We were
That I supported.
Right. So
Okay, but that's a small cost. As you know, the war in Afghanistan...
we're still reeling
is-
from the cost of September 11th.
The war-
Where are you getting your figures from? We
The
still
war in
had-
Afghanistan is much cheaper than the war in
It's
Iraq.
not
We
the war
have
in
10 times the
Afghanistan.
troops in
It is the
Afghanistan we have in
knocking
Iraq.
down of the buildings, the knocking out the financial stuff. It took us a while. It took us 2 years to come back from
We
that.
paid tens of billions of dollars to the victims and to deal with the cleanup in New York.
But you're only talking about one
There's
part of the
hundreds of
expenses.
billions of dollars in Iraq.
You're only still talking about part of
Here's
it.
my question, and I'm still trying to get an answer out of you. When government has to spend money, or when you want government to spend money, you continue to support the war in Iraq. You think that the $500 billion plus dollars that we spend is good money, well spent. We can talk
Okay,
about that.
right.
When you in general want spending to go up, should you raise taxes to pay for it? I believe that we shouldn't leave a mountain of debt for our children and grandchildren to pay. If we support a war in Iraq, which I didn't support, but if we're going to do that, we should raise taxes, pay for it, and then our children won't have to pay twice the amount of taxes with interest that we have to pay today. Isn't that fair? Pay as you
never,
go.
ever, for the record, for the rest of everyone's life, never want government spending to go up. I never
Well, the
want
Iraq war, you support
I
that
never
spending
want
going up.
government spending to expand. What I said was,
Well, wait a minute. On the
historically,
Iraq
when
war.
we go to war,
Right.
we have expanded our spending. That's what I said. I didn't say Sandy Liddy Bourne wanted to expand
But
spending.
Sandy Liddy Bourne, do you think we could have gone to war in Iraq without government spending? You're not saying that.
No, I'm not saying
you-
that.
you
But I'm
support
saying
the war,
is
you gotta pay for
but
it.
we have to pay for it, but what we did not have to do was expand the size of government. Because
Okay.
not only...
That's fine.
Not,
You're telling me that we should have cut
we-
other programs
yes,
in order to pay for the war
yes,
in Iraq. What would you
yes.
cut? Social Security, Medicare,
Well, Social Security, I think, is a big problem. I think everybody agrees.
give up our Social Security checks to pay for the war in Iraq?
Here, you know what?
Even though people put in
You
that money all
are
those
younger than
years?
I am, and you will never get your Social
Yes, I will.
Security
You know
check.
why? It's required by law.
You won't
and
get it.
unless
There's no money
President
there.
Bush breaks the law.
There's no money there. It won't be President Bush. It'll be one of your presidents.
See, that's one of the wonderful things about Republican rhetoric. The law says they have to pay for Social Security. Now,
Okay, and the
now,
Congress
here's the
goes
thing,
in
here's
and
the
puts
thing.
in an IOU,
That's
takes
right.
the money out and says IOU.
Here's what President Bush
and
has
my
done.
children, your
Here's what President Bush has
grandchildren
done.
will be paying for that. You will not
President
get
Bush has taken the money that people have put away for the retirement, socked away in Social Security, and used it to pay for the war in Iraq. You support that.
President Clinton took money out of Social Security. Every president, every
Clinton
Congress.
put money back in
You know
Social
what?
Security. Now, wait a minute. You
There's
know that. Now, hold on. I'm not going to get away with that. I'm not going to let you get away with that.
In spending Social Security
I need a
funds.
concession from you, because
Nope.
I know you know the facts.
There's-
In 2000, is it not true that Bill Clinton used money from the surplus and took it and put it back in Social Security?
And did he not take it out? Are you telling me President Clinton never took money out of Social Security?
Is Bill
The
Clinton put
man
money
took it
back
out.
in?
Every Congress and every
Okay.
president
But here's
has
the thing.
taken from
the
those
law
funds.
says that I'm going to get my Social Security check. The only way I will not get my Social Security check is if Republicans have power and cut it, because it's required to do it, even if we have to go into debt.
Okay.
George
Why do
Bush,
you think
hold
we-
on. George Bush and Republicans believe that it's perfectly fine to go into massive debt.
Are you having this show all by yourself?
I want you to answer my questions. George Bush and Republicans believe that it's okay to go into massive debt for the war in Iraq. But they don't believe it's worth going into debt to protect people's Social Security benefits. Why is the war in Iraq more important to go into debt for than Social Security benefits?
We completely disagree on this. I would not necessarily cut Social Security for the war in Iraq. What I would do is cut programs. We
What
have
would you cut?
we have expanded our environmental programs under this president.
Okay.
We have expanded all kinds of things. There are other things. If we were truly in need, just as we did in World War II, we cut back on a lot of programs, and we did expand our expanding, but we cut back on a lot. People were recycling, people were sending stuff
Sandy,
in.
we have to take
totally
a break.
different.
But when we come back, I'm going to give you 2 minutes to think about it. I want you to tell me where you're going to find the $1 trillion to pay for the war in Iraq without raising taxes. Okay, you got 2 minutes to think about it. Folks, if you want to join the discussion, it's easy to do. Toll-free number, 888-488-MARK. Give us a call. Tell me I'm wrong or Sandy's wrong, but we want to hear from you right after this.
You're totally going off.
Know what public access means.
Some think it's just
I don't know.
another channel on the dial.
But it's much more than that.
It's the voice of the people.
People like you.
Your neighbors, your friends,
Or your family,
People who want to share ideas.
opinions,
Cultures.
lifestyles,
art,
Sports. Music.
events, entertainment,
History.
Science.
beliefs,
People who want to learn about television.
Producing.
directing,
Cameras. Audio.
Lighting.
editing, or radio, talk, music.
whatever you think people should hear.
Public access is the place where everyone has a voice.
And it's the place where that voice gets heard.
A place where you can create your own form of personal expression.
So what do you want to say?
Whatever it is.
You can say it here.
Because we're public access.
For the people,
By the people.
It is about balancing our choices between the gray of the concrete jungle and the stunning beauty of the real one, between a stoic facade of granite and the fury of the canyon. It's why there's EarthShare, a simple way to find balance. EarthShare is the workplace giving program bringing the leading environmental groups under one umbrella. Support EarthShare, support them all. EarthShare. Please ask your employer about workplace giving. To learn more, visit our website.
Thousands of kids in this country have everything it takes to go to college, except the money. The United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
From Washington, back to the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. My guest is Sandy Liddy Bourne. She's the Vice President for Policy and Strategy for the Heartland Institute, but she's here on her own dime arguing her own Republican virtues, if you will. It's got nothing to do with the Heartland Institute. She's also the daughter of G. Gordon Liddy. Sandy, before the break, you were telling me you're a fiscal conservative, and I tried to say, hey, don't you believe in pay as you go? If you're going to have a program, you have to raise taxes to pay for it. And you said, no, we can cut enough spending to pay for the war in Iraq.
Well, it's right. So you keep talking about the war in Iraq. I really have a problem with the expansion of government into all of these other social service or other programs. Expanding government in terms of spending on environment, spending on a lot on education, on all kinds of other things that I think the private sector can pick up. I think that we should have, if we really wanted to win this war, and this is probably where we differ. I came of an age, and let me just first say, I used to be in the United States Army, I was in the Army Nurse Corps. I've got a brother now who's a Marine, I'm married to a Marine, I've got a brother who was in the Navy. We were Desert Storm era. We were not Vietnam War era folks. And what causes me heartache right now is listening to everybody on both sides of the debate constantly referring to the Vietnam War as though that is our baseline for war. And in fact, and we keep making that mistake over and over again. We keep looking back to what did we do in World War II? What did we do in Vietnam? What did we do in Korea? When in reality, the technology of warfare has changed and the nature of warfare has changed this time around, that it's a different animal.
And I want to talk about the war, but I need to get an answer for you on my first question, though,
let me
because
explain
you're changing
this.
the topic,
No, I'm giving you the basis for why I'm going to say what I'm about to say. The technology has changed to a point where we don't need that many soldiers anymore in going over and taking the land. We have our battles that used to be, like in World War II, years long.
So you're saying
now,
we can fight it more cheaply.
Let me finish.
That's what you're saying.
Let me finish. They're now taking less time for us to actually win the battle. We won the battle in Iraq. Our mistake is that we think we can do one of two things, and neither can we do. The first is manage a democracy. Nobody can manage democracy. The second is to manage war. You cannot do that. So we have a short-term warfare, and then we're trying to teach a culture of people who have been living in the 15th century for centuries.
Okay, look, I'm happy to talk about the war with you, but I asked you how we were going to pay for it.
Right, but
I still haven't gotten an answer to that question yet.
So if we're going to invest dollars, and if we're going to win this war in Iraq, then we have to invest the dollars in teaching and educating the cultures over there about how to work in a democracy, so that, and you agreed with me earlier, that when we went into Desert Storm and we went to Baghdad,
we didn't go to Baghdad.
We didn't go to Baghdad. We probably should have, and we didn't. And those of us who were soldiers at that time knew we would be coming back. Thought it would be 10 years later. It took a little while longer.
I want to get back to the question I asked you, because now you've raised a whole new topic that I want to talk to you about. But you still haven't explained how we're going to pay for the war in Iraq.
Well, we have to set our priorities, and we have to make the war our number one priority, which we have not done. Are we making the war Bush is trying to make the war the number one priority, but Congress is not.
I'll take that as you can't answer my question.
Congress is not. No, and what I said to you is I would be willing to cut a lot of social programs.
Do you think we spend $1 trillion on the environment?
And put the money into defense. Well, we spent $2 billion on studying climate change.
Okay, $2 billion on global warming, all right?
Studying.
All right, so now we have a $998 billion more to account for.
Well,
education, we wipe out the department. That's maybe $50 billion.
No, some people would say wipe out the Department of Education.
Here's the point. Whenever you ask conservative where they want to cut spending, they always do what you do. I have to say that they filibuster, they change the topic, they say, because I'll tell you why. They know that they're laying a massive debt on our children. You claim to be official conservative, but you're not.
How much money goes into pork spending?
I would throw away all the pork barrel spending, but
and then you'd pay for the war, wouldn't you?
No, you wouldn't. It's not enough. It's not enough.
Well,
I'm glad we agree. Get rid of corporate welfare. You agree?
Get rid of subsidies.
I agree.
Get rid of subsidies.
Get rid of the energy bill. They gave all that money to Mobil and Exxon.
No, they didn't give any money to Mobil and Exxon.
We gave tens of billions of dollars to Mobil and Exxon.
No,
Cheney's energy bill.
No. 2005 energy bill.
Yes.
What we're trying to do is expand our domestic supplies. Do you know we only use 3% of our domestic supply?
Do just fine without taxpayer money.
Who are the top 11 companies that
Mobil and Exxon earn more than any other corporation in American history.
The top 11 companies that run oil in this world are owned by national governments, not by companies.
But the American companies earn more than any other.
It's those governments, Russia, Chavez,
so you support Soviet-style helping American corporations.
Absolutely not. Why
are we giving money to Mobil and Exxon?
We're not. What I'm saying is open it up, open our domestic supplies so our own domestic companies here in the United States can access our supplies and decrease our dependence on foreign oil. Do you know in 1970, we only imported 30% of our oil. Right. Now we're up over 65%.
Right.
Why?
Because we don't have alternative fuel like we should have.
We cut ourselves off of domestic supplies. That's why.
No, we don't have alternative energy. In Brazil, 40% of their cars run on sugar cane. I was in a car in Maryland that ran on soybeans.
How many cars are in Brazil?
Brazil is a very large country.
Not nearly the number that we have in the United States. Brazil is the size, not the size of the United States.
How many cars do we have running on sugar cane?
We have virtually none. We have 10% ethanol in all of our gasoline.
Why is it the Republicans love oil so much?
Why do
you love oil companies? Is it because of Cheney and Howard?
You don't have a serious discussion on energy policy. You just want to slam Republicans.
I'm still trying to get an answer on why you claim you're fiscal conservative and yet you support all this massive debt.
I do not support subsidies. I do not support pork barrel spending. I do not support putting into having government pay for programs that the private sector can easily take care of.
Let me see if we can find something we can agree on. Pay as you go. Whatever you spend on the government, you should have enough taxes to pay for it.
That would be fine. But you know what? The Democrats didn't uphold their pledge to that. The moment they got a bill, they started earmarking it. This Congress, Pelosi Congress, filling it in with midnight, all kinds of pork barrel spending. So don't tell me you have the moral authority on that, my friend.
Okay. I do not support pork barrel spending. I can tell you, as you know, it's far, far less that happened under the Republican Congress, but I don't support it, and I'll even one-up you and tell you one of the Democrats is one of the worst offenders. His name is Jack Murtha, and I have condemned him on this show for it. Whether it's Jack Murtha or Randy Duke Cunningham, who accepts bribery for his, or William Jefferson. He is, and he should be, although apparently the prosecutor that put him in jail, Bush wants to fire. I understand that because that's too much. Let me go to a caller. We have Mike from Centerville, Virginia. Welcome to the Inside Scoop.
Thank you for having me on. Mark, you're a little rude tonight. Looking at the Americans for Tax Reform, in the Clinton years, they never had a budget grow more than 5.1%. In the Bush years, they've never had a budget grow less than 6.2%. Americans for Tax Reform show that during the Clinton years, $102 billion was the total growth in real total federal spending. In the first 5 years of the Bush administration, it's been over $600 billion in total real federal dollar increases. That's $2,004.
Well, Mike, I certainly agree. The only reason I've been rude is I've been trying to get an answer to my question about fiscal conservatism. But it sounds to me like you're agreeing with me that basically the Democrats, when they're in charge, spend much less than the Republicans when they're in charge. It's just a fact of life.
Well, I think this administration and the last Republican Congress definitely, and that's why they lost. It was not that the Democrats won. The Republicans lost because they went back against their principles. They expanded spending. They expanded the size of government. I went knocking on doors for them. I heard about this on the streets. That's why the Republicans lost. The Democrats did not necessarily win. And those Democrats that did win, that took over Republican seats, those were more progressive, moderate Democrats.
It depends on the seat.
Well, for the most part, they and Pelosi has to answer to them because they gave her the Congress. Those progressive Democrats that are fiscal conservatives took the moderate Republican seats.
Well, I thank you for your call, Mike. I would argue that today, that there is a fiscal conservative party, and it's called the Democratic Party. We are the party that says we don't want to lay massive debt on future generations. We are the party of the parole voters, and I'm very proud of that.
I would believe you if you didn't have already in the first 4 months pork barrel spending. You show me the evidence of that.
There's very little pork barrel spending compared to what was done before, but I will agree and condemn to the extent it exists.
They've only had 4 months so
I'm glad
far.
to see, frankly, it's so low. Let me go back to your question on the war, though, because I do want to talk about that. I did think we should have gone to Baghdad in 1991. That may surprise you. I also supported the Persian Gulf War. That may surprise my listeners. But the reason I did so is because Iraq had invaded another country. I think we had a right under international law to respond. I also think that at that time, the Shiites and the Kurds were in the forefront. They were leading the revolution. They were ready to overthrow Saddam, and all they asked for was a little bit of air backup. And George Bush Sr. basically said no, and they got crushed by Saddam Hussein. In my view, I have no problem helping democratic elements of a country succeed. I do have a problem, though, when we go in and try to do it ourselves. And I would suggest to you that although we in America thank France very much for the American Revolution support, we would not have thanked them very much if instead of helping George Washington win the war, they had come in with their own troops and invaded and said, we are going to provide a democracy for you, America. We would have said, thank you very much, France, we don't want your bases here. We don't want to speak French. We want to do this ourselves. Thank you for your help. We're going to have to go to a break. I'll give you a chance to respond after the break. But don't you see a difference?
I can't thank France for anything except maybe wine.
You can't thank Lafayette for helping George Washington? My point is this. Isn't it better to help a country reform itself rather than going in with troops and trying to do it our way? And I'm sorry I have to take a break because that's the way it works. Folks, if you want to call in, the toll-free number is 888-488-MARK, 888-488-6275. We'll be right back. This way you get 2 minutes to think.
Don't know what public access means,
Some think it's just another channel on the dial.
but it's much more than that.
It's the voice of the people.
People like you.
Your neighbors, your friends,
or your family,
People who want to share ideas,
opinions,
Cultures.
lifestyles,
art,
sports, music,
events, entertainment,
History.
science.
beliefs,
People who want to learn about television,
Producing.
directing,
cameras, audio.
Lighting.
editing, or radio, talk, music.
whatever you think people should hear.
Public access is the place where everyone has a voice.
And it's the place where that voice gets heard.
A place where you can create your own form of personal expression.
So what do you want to say?
Whatever it is.
You can say it here.
Because we're public access.
For the people,
By the people.
It is about balancing our choices between the gray of the concrete jungle and the stunning beauty of the real one, between a stoic facade of granite and the fury of the canyon. It's why there's Earth Share, the simple way to EarthShare is the workplace giving program bringing the leading environmental groups under one umbrella. Support EarthShare, support them all. EarthShare. Please ask your employer about workplace giving. To learn more, visit our website.
Thousands of kids in this country have everything it takes to go to college, except the money. The United Negro College Fund. A mind is a terrible thing to waste.
From Washington, back to the Inside Scoop with Mark Levine.
Welcome back to the Inside Scoop. My guest is Sandy Liddy Bourne, Vice President for Policy and Strategy for the Heartland Institute. She is a born and bred Republican. I used to work for the Democrats as a congressional attorney, and we have so many disagreements that, frankly, during the break, she and I have been going at it. Let me go back, though, to the question I asked you before the break. Isn't there a difference between helping a country, as the French did us, or as, frankly, I supported us doing for Iraq in '91, helping people revolt against an oppressive ruler, and going in, sending in our troops, insisting it's done ourselves, and wanting permanent bases, and all the way we fought the war in Iraq?
Yeah, I think that is one of the strategies in the toolbox for foreign affairs in terms of helping to build democracies around the world. Democracy is the best form of government for just even international relationships or in anything in terms of getting goods going, trade, improving quality of life. And in those places where I think we have provided financial support or other kinds of support in different countries rather than invading ourselves. Oh
my God, we agree.
Well, in the Iraq situation, I would say I don't think, although there aren't as many countries that have the strength of militaries that the United States has right now, but I would love to see far more countries helping to provide the security right now while we are trying to teach a culture of people how to work democratically.
You said you want to have other countries provide security.
Assist us.
Okay.
Assist us with that. We have some.
Why aren't they doing it?
We have some.
Well, no, even Britain's left. Come on, it was 90% America, 10% Britain. Now it's 99.9% America.
They simply don't have the depth that we have in terms of our military prowess.
The world understands why we hit back in Afghanistan. It was self-defense, but the world doesn't understand why you attacked a country that never attacked us. Maybe that's why even our allies in Canada, who always support us,
I will tell you right
our
now,
allies in Canada weren't even on our side.
I am one person who's very happy that Saddam Hussein does not exist any longer, and I don't see how anyone can turn their cheek.
So we need to invade North Korea too, don't we?
No, just hang on.
Well, I mean, Saddam Hussein, there's at least 30, 40 other dictators
people have said we should
kill.
Have a South Korean option for this war, and I think that would be a big mistake too.
We need to kill the leaders of Sudan.
All right, let me go back to
hold on. You glad Saddam Hussein's gone. Don't we have to get rid of Saudi Arabia and Tunisia and China?
Okay. Now, let me finish my thought, Mark.
Let me finish
my thought. I talked earlier about how we need to work on building a democracy. That particular region of the Mideast is very unstable, has been for a long time. We are strong allies with Israel. We want Israel to stand. We want Israel to stand for forever, as far as I'm concerned. We have tried in the past to go in and leave and withdraw and hope that these countries will work with each other and continue to work on the market, on the world market, global market, for either providing resources, whatever. That's not the case. It simply is not the case. We can't go in and leave. I felt that it was a big mistake
that we left during the Persian.
We shouldn't have left in the Persian Gulf as soon as we did.
But when you attack a country that has never attacked us, doesn't that send a signal to the world that we are a bully?
Let me finish. We did not just simply withdraw from Germany. We did not simply just withdraw from Korea.
Right.
We did not just withdraw from Japan. We stayed, we worked on building the government, and then, well, to a certain extent, we left. We still haven't completely.
You see Saddam Hussein is the same as Pearl Harbor, even though they didn't attack us. That's the thing I don't understand. After Afghanistan, after 9/11, The entire world was now let me finish.
Weapons of mass destruction on his own people.
Hold. You're talking about the weapons that Ronald Reagan gave him? Those weapons? The ones that George Shultz gave them? You're talking about the Saddam Hussein that Don Rumsfeld shook his hand and said, you go forth, and we gave him the weapons along with France and Russia? Is that what you're talking about?
The man sprayed his own people.
Yes, he did.
And he
with our support of your president.
To be taken out.
That's right. Ronald Reagan said, you go ahead, here's your poison gas. He sprays his own people, and now we complain?
Well, look.
Was he doing anything since 1993, since he was contained? We had
Yeah, how about the whole UN scandal on oil for food? Do you think that didn't
That was worth $1 trillion and 3,000 American dead because, oh no, a corrupt dictator is stealing money.
Well, look,
you know what? There are lots of corrupt dictators. Are there worth another 3,000 dead?
I do not want a premature withdrawal like we did with Vietnam.
I didn't want to go in the first
massive
place.
executions.
Tell me this. Why?
We cannot now just walk away from this.
How can we even walk in?
You're a day late and a dollar short on the argument. We cannot simply walk away anymore.
Here's the Republican view. We're going to go ahead, say, invade Canada and kill 100,000 people.
That's not
and then,
speak for the Democrats. Don't speak for the Republicans.
Let me tell you how I see the Republican view, and you can tell me where I'm wrong. If we go in and invade Canada and kill 100,000 people and torture them, once we're already there, we can't possibly leave because then that would be surrender. That would look bad. If you don't have a war that's justified to begin with, if you don't have a war that's justified to begin with, there's no justification to remain. You can't say, oops, we lied to you about WMDs, we lied to you about nuclear weapons, we lied to you about a connection between 9/11 and Saddam Hussein, we tricked you into going to war, but now we're there, we get to keep all the oil profits.
You're using all of yesterday's rhetoric.
Right, because...
Give me a solution for today besides, just give me a solution for today besides let's just pull our troops and go.
You concede.
Democrats just want to withdraw the troops and let these people murder themselves, and that is ethically wrong.
Really? In the 1980s, 1 million people died in the Iran-Iraq war. Was that ethically wrong?
You or one of your presidential candidates who wants to be the first person to raise the white flag on this,
who
wants to walk out.
Oh, no. Yeah, we should still be in Vietnam, shouldn't we?
You know something? If we had stayed in one Vietnam...
Yeah, Vietnam would be a much better place today with more napalm. Maybe if we nuked it, maybe it'd be much better off. I think Vietnam's better off today with us gone.
You've just made my point that everybody likes to use Vietnam as the baseline. And
because you're saying we should never, ever leave a war zone.
The technology is different. No, I am not saying that. What I'm saying is we have to spend the resources and invest in democracy in there and invest in teaching people how to have civil discourse.
I see.
You and I can sit here.
We're going to force them to become an American 51st state.
You're rude and you're interrupting me and you're not letting me finish my thought. But let me finish. We should spend the resources on teaching people how to have civil discourse, on how to vote, on how to have a democracy. Unfortunately, we are in a country that has had a long history of settling problems with violence. We cannot now, I don't think we have the moral authority to just simply walk away from this. I would rather, we're already there.
Do we have the moral authority to go in?
We're already there.
Okay,
it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
We're already there.
Interesting to me.
We're already there. I believed in when we went in. I saw the NBC truckloads and things like that. I don't know. That's all I can say. All I can say is now we're there. It's 2007. If we're going to talk about a strategy to get out of Iraq, what do we want to leave behind? Do we want to leave behind a country that is absolutely wrapped up in civil war and they're murdering then millions of people and we look the other way? That's what elitists and Democrats would have us do. I would rather take the harder choice and invest more dollars and invest more resources and get Europe and get the other countries to come in there. And you know why? And do you know why?
You know why it's a joke?
Do you know why? Because the Mideast does offer fuel. Where do you think Europe got most of its oil? We don't get our oil from Iraq.
I understand.
We get the bulk of our oil from Canada. So this argument that this is all about oil for the United States is wrong. But Europe does get its oil from Iraq. Russia is now threatening to cut off its resources for fuel for Europe. Europe should be paying attention to this and should be there. But they don't have the military capability to help us out.
Okay. You say it doesn't matter whether we have the moral authority to go in. We're there, deal with it. Now, let me finish now.
It does matter, but it's done.
Okay.
It's done.
Let me suggest to you that there's a reason why Europe's not helping us out. And there's a reason why Russia is not helping us out.
Because
and there's a reason why the Iraqi people will not go and accept American hegemony where we control everything. There's a reason why they don't want our permanent bases there. There's a reason why the majority of the Iraqi people want us gone. It's because we didn't have any moral authority to go in there in the first place. Republicans say it doesn't matter what you do. Deal with it after we do it. We can torture people. I don't care if it's against the law. Deal with it. We can walk into countries, steal their oil. Deal with it. You said it doesn't matter whether we have moral authority to go in there. The reason we are failing today.
And I, as a soldier,
I'm glad to hear that.
am insulted
I'm glad to hear
that you would
that.
even raise that.
Well, the president supports it.
Those soldiers who participated in the torture have been brought up on charges, and more
Is waterboarding torture?
No,
It's not.
No. I'm sorry. I don't believe in that form of torture. I don't believe in.
What about hypothermia?
Let me finish. Torture is a useless exercise in gathering intelligence.
I agree with you.
And anyone who has spent any time in special ops or any time in the military
I agree with
would
you.
say that.
I agree with you now.
You get a lot more intelligence.
I agree.
And under the Clinton administration, we pulled all of our human intelligence
Well, now
out of
you're
these
changing the
countries.
topic. Let's
Because
go back.
you keep talking about torture because you like to bring up the rhetoric,
I'm bringing
and
up
you
torture
don't know
because
what you're
here-
talking about.
I tell you why I know what I'm talking about. I want you to condemn, then, the Bush administration's support of hypothermia, putting someone in the cold until their lips turn purple, which they say is not torture. They say waterboarding is not torture, to simulate drowning. Okay?
I've already said,
Okay.
I don't think torture is
Yes,
a
but
good
the question
exercise.
is, what is torture? Can you agree with me that leaving someone out in the cold until they have hypothermia, that's torture? We agree?
Yeah, I
Good.
say that doesn't work.
I'm glad to hear that.
I think any
glad to hear
POW
that.
would tell you that it doesn't work. But you know why?
I know
Because
it doesn't work.
when you get tortured, what happens? You tell lies
That's right.
to get out of it.
That's exactly
so
right.
So we're in agreement on that.
We are in agreement on that.
So stop raising torture in front of this former American soldier.
I'm glad to hear you agree. I'm sorry the President and the Vice President of the United States, and frankly, every
apologize to the
single
President.
Republican
Just
candidate,
don't
with the
bring-
exception of
don't
John
bring the rhetoric to
McCain,
me.
apparently supports torture.
Our soldiers have been over there doing a darn good job.
Why is it that every Republican candidate except John McCain supports torture? Why is that?
I can't answer for that.
I mean, I was at the Republican debate.
I can't answer for that.
I'm glad to hear you disagree
why
with
are there
them.
so many?
I'm glad to hear you
Why are there
disagree
so
with
many
them.
elected officials that have no experience in the military?
I'm glad to hear you. I don't know. George Bush did
You know why?
AWOL.
Because we
I don't
have
know
so
why.
many years of people not signing up and volunteering,
Yeah.
at least putting 2 years in.
Maybe it's
Did you go into the military?
You know why? You know why? Well,
Did
first of
you
all,
go in?
I was too old to go in this.
Nobody's too
Let me
old
tell
to
you-
go
let me
in
tell
this
you,
volunteer
I had
army.
a soldier on this show yesterday. After September 11th, he signed up. He volunteered. You know why? He wanted to fight against the murderers who killed 3,000 Americans. And what happened? Instead of going to Afghanistan, instead of going after Al-Qaeda, instead of going after Osama bin Laden, instead of defending his country, he was sent to Iraq to defend Exxon and Mobil.
Okay, no.
You know,
No,
he was sent in a
and then-
worthless war against a country that didn't attack us and was doing no big deal harm
Do
to
you want
anybody.
to have an intelligent discussion on this or not?
I want to know for you,
You
how
can't-
you think we can possibly achieve anything in Iraq when we didn't have the moral authority to go there to begin with.
I say to you, we are there. Stop using yesterday's argument. Give me a solution for today.
Here's a solution for today.
Other
I'll give you
than
a solution for today.
straight withdrawal.
Here's a solution for
You
today.
would have
I'll
us,
give you a solution.
You would
You
have
wanna hear
us
my
withdraw
solution?
and have all these folks murder
Let me
each
give
other.
you my solution. Number one, we can't possibly do it under this president because everyone knows this president can't be
Just
trusted.
tell me what your solution
so
is and
first,
stop
we need a
bashing the
Democratic
president.
Because the entire world knows this is a president who's going to lie about everything.
Give
I mean, he
me the
sent Colin
solution and
Powell.
not the political rhetoric.
No, I'm just explaining to you that we will never get Europe or Russia or any country in the world to trust us again until we have a new president. We have 2 more years where the entire world is going to hate us. If you look at international opinion polls around the world, America is considered more dangerous than any country on earth. It's amazing because after September 11th, we were the most loved country on earth. So first of all, we must have a Democratic president to do anything. We must have a Democratic
A
Congress.
Democratic
Once
president
we
who
have
supports a policy of appeasement.
that,
Europe would like that. Europe would love
I
a
don't know
policy
who
of
you want
appeasement.
appease, the Shiite to the Sunnis. Whose side are you on?
Whichever Democratic president wants to raise the white flag in Iraq.
Okay, we are in the middle of a civil war. The Shiites think that they can control the country, they're the majority. The Sunnis think they can control the country, they used to control the country. They will fight each other until one of them is in control. In 1980s, 1 million people died in the Iran-Iraq war, slaughtered, okay? That was an awful thing. But one of the nice things, about the only nice thing you can say about the Iran-Iraq war, is we didn't have GIs sitting there on the border getting slaughtered too. They are going to kill each other until they're in control. Now,
You still haven't given me a solution.
I'm telling you. Maliki is supporting Shiite death squads. There's the Sunni death squads that Al-Qaeda is supporting. They're going to kill each other whether we're there 1 day, 1 year, or 10 years. The only difference is that while we're there, they're going to kill us too. So when you have a lesser of two evils, it's very hard when you have a president who goes around bashing beehives and then says, the bees are out, bees are out.
Okay.
What's your solution?
Your solution is to withdraw now, just like we did in the Persian Gulf, and guess what?
No, it's very different from the Persian Gulf.
My kids will be back there in 10 years.
It's very different from the Persian Gulf. The Persian Gulf War, we were justified in being there. We had the moral authority. We had international law, and the Kurds and the Shiites begged George Herbert Walker Bush to help them overthrow Saddam Hussein, and he said no.
What is your solution for today?
Today, our solution is to set a date for withdrawal, to say to the Shiites and Sunnis, you are on the brink of disaster. You are killing each other for control. You have to sign an agreement and come to the bargaining table and come to something you can agree with, and I support an independent Kurdish state, by the way, and that would allow a place for the Iraqis who helped us. You come to an agreement by October 1st, because we're leaving. If they do, and frankly, I think that kind of push
Do you think an independent Kurdish state is a reality?
Yes, I do. I think that forceful rhetoric would make it happen, but if it didn't, we're no worse off than we are now, but I'll tell you what, we're better off. Our troops come home, and even better, we can go after Al-Qaeda, the people that murdered 3,000 Americans, who I would like to go and fight a war against.
I think we have stopped hunting Al-Qaeda.
We have.
And no, we have
Why do we
not.
have 10 times the troops in Iraq that we have in Afghanistan?
We have not stopped. I can assure you, we have not stopped
Afghanistan is
hunting bin
50% larger than Iraq in population and area. Why do we have 10 times the troops in Iraq that we have in Afghanistan?
Because Afghanistan, for the most part, has stabilized. Iraq has not stabilized, and we do need more troops in Iraq to get that to stabilize.
Wouldn't you rather send troops
and we are
to go
working,
after Osama bin Laden, to go after Al-Qaeda? The Taliban is reconstituting itself in places in Afghanistan.
We go back to the need for human intelligence and finding Osama bin Laden.
Which I firmly support.
Right. So, but do you honestly think an independent Kurdish state would develop out of this?
Yes, if not out of Bush. Bush can't do it.
No, it does.
If I were President of the United States,
tell me, how would the Shiites or the Sunnis allow an independent Kurdish state?
Well, I would actually support troops in an independent Kurdish state, because that's a country.
So we go back to still needing to have troops in there.
But there's a big difference.
Now there is.
Here's the difference. It's a huge one. The Kurds want us there. The Shiites want us gone.
The Kurds want us there now, and we're there.
That's right. And there's no violence there. There's virtually no violence in independent Kurdistan.
All right. You and I are going to have to agree to disagree on this, because you come from a very different perspective. You're using yesterday's rhetoric. I don't think that the Shiites and the Sunnis will allow a Kurdish independent state. I think that's a good idea, but I don't think that it would happen, and it wouldn't matter who was president, but we still, if even we wanted to do that, we still would have to provide the troops and provide the security to keep the Sunnis and the Shiites from going in after the Kurds.
That's very easy to do. There's a big difference between defending a country that wants to be defended, whether it be Kuwait or Kurdistan or frankly even Israel. Defending a country that supports, or NATO for that matter, a country that needs your support to defend itself, where the people want you there. We really are agreed as liberators, and countries that want us gone.
So suddenly Europe will get on the banner for an independent Kurdish state.
Well, I think it requires a bit of diplomacy, but I think it would actually, and that's something I've supported for a long time. It's a separate issue, but I think actually you could work with Turkey. You could say that in fact you give up the former Kurdish state.
The EU didn't even want to let Turkey into the EU. How is EU going to be supportive of a Kurdish state? Talk about setting up
It seems to me, I think these things are possible. I think diplomacy is possible. I think showing that we want to support people.
I agree. I think diplomacy
what you're saying is that in effect we can do everything with force.
Do you think Condi Rice is not using every diplomatic tool she has in the toolbox?
I think she's not using every diplomatic tool she has in the toolbox. It's not about persuasion, you see. It's about showing the rest of the world that we are not an aggressor state, that we are a defender state. It's about showing America.
We showed the whole world in 1993 under Clinton that we were not an aggressor state when we got hit. And then what happens in 2001? We get hit hard. Why
are you talking about Afghanistan when I'm the one who wants to fight Al-Qaeda more than you do? So why are you
that's not true. That is not true. Al-Qaeda.
You support 10 times the troops in Iraq as in Afghanistan. I don't.
A lot of the trouble that we have coming out of the Mideast is born of poverty, is born of violence, is born of anti-U.S. propaganda.
Why do people hate the United States?
It's because they are envious of the United States.
Let me ask
They're
you
living
this.
in poverty.
Do you think more people hate the United States today than they did September 11th, 2001? Because I think they do.
I think it's gone back and forth over history.
I think it's gone
over the history
way
of time.
up. If you look after...
Yeah, I think, I understand and I realize that there has been.
And let me suggest to you, the war in Iraq is the cause of it.
In the 80s and the 90s, whenever I traveled to Europe, to Eastern Europe, there is always an anti-U.S. bias.
There's always going to be some people that are against the United States, but after September 11th, even France, who Republicans love to hate, said we're all Americans now. There was tremendous sympathy, even in the Arab world, for the United States.
Of course there was sympathy.
Even in the Arab world.
Of course there was sympathy.
But that's the point.
But
the whole world was behind us, and they even supported our going into Afghanistan, beating up the Taliban. The entire Congress, save one member, voted for that. Democrats and Republicans were united.
Look,
people in Congress were singing God Bless America.
I make no apologies for going after the aggressors that came after us.
Neither do I, and that's my point. When I'm talking about Iraq,
but
one little trick Republicans
strategy.
do, and Bush has done it, and a lot of people sitting in this chair do it, and I don't buy it, and I think it's unfair, is when I'm talking about Al-Qaeda and talking about Afghanistan, they suddenly pretend like the war in Iraq had something to do with 9/11. Why does Bush continue to lie to us and pretend there's a connection?
In my mind, there is a connection.
What is the connection?
In my mind, there is a connection because the whole reason and how Al-Qaeda formed up, as I was saying, came out of the poverty, came out of the violence, that whole idea came out of oppressive governments holding people down. They seeded the anti-U.S. Greed, and they gave them solutions by developing schools and teaching them to come after us. I honestly believe President Bush wants to go after this with a long-term strategy in mind, that it's not enough to just go into a country and say, okay, we're going to take it over, or we're going to fight a battle, we're going to stop them and go. We need to teach democracy so that this particular part of the world can have civil discourse and can have arguments, can discuss things and disagree without violence.
And we can all hold hands and sing Kumbaya, and it would be a wonderful world. A candidate Bush ran in 2000 and said he didn't believe in nation building. Now, apparently George Bush believes that he can forcibly accept a country to be remade in America's image, a country that never attacked us. But what does that have to do with 9/11?
I don't think it's going to have, because
was there Al-Qaeda in Iraq before 9/11? No. Is there Al-Qaeda in Iraq now? Yes. Who brought Al-Qaeda to Iraq? George Walker Bush.
Of Al-Qaeda come from several countries in the Mideast,
right?
Not just from one.
They weren't in Iraq.
Some of them.
Saddam Hussein hated Osama bin Laden. And they didn't work together.
No, they
didn't. And there was no Al-Qaeda in Iraq then. Do you know why they're there now? The reason they're there now is because people are so angry with our occupation of Iraq that native-born Iraqis are revolting against our occupation, and they're joining with Al-Qaeda and whoever they can to do it.
Now you're sounding like Martha. And
that's how they see us.
They're coming.
They see us as occupiers because they didn't attack us.
I understand that. I understand that. But also, I understand that we've got to work on building democracy over there. Well, by what we're doing. I don't think we have enough troops over there, to be honest with you. I don't think we're providing enough security to teach the people how to have civil discourse.
I had a soldier on this program yesterday who talked about they would go into homes in Iraq looking for terrorists, looking for insurgents, and they would, take the man of the house and strip him and knock down everything out of the cupboards and throw all the clothes on the ground, legitimately looking for weapons. And he talked about the hatred that he would see seething in their eyes of someone who didn't used to be a terrorist, but now that we've gone in there, became a terrorist. Let me suggest to you, we are creating more terrorists than we're killing. We are creating more hatred than we're destroying. We are helping Al-Qaeda. There is nothing Osama bin Laden liked better. His happiest day was when we went into Iraq, because we did more for Osama bin Laden that day than we ever did in history.
I completely disagree with you, and I just think it's, at this point, we have been working on building infrastructure over there. I always hear about how we're not at the pre-war level in terms of the output.
We're not. They don't even have electricity.
How could you possibly expect us to be there right now? How could, in any way, shape, or form, could we be at the pre-war level in Iraq?
Let me suggest to you that if the Iraqi people wanted us there, if the Iraqi people supported us there.
They're still
If the Iraqi
fighting each
people-
other.
That's right.
They're still fighting
That's
each
right.
other.
If they wanted us there, we could do amazing things.
Well,
that's why I think we could do amazing things in Kurdistan. We can't do amazing things when they see us as the occupier
And I think
the
that's
enemy.
a very pessimistic view.
It happens
a very
to be
pessimistic
a fact.
view. It happens
it may
to be
pessimistic,
a view.
but it's true.
I am of the view that if we provided more security, if we have more security not just from the U.S., but from other European nations and other countries around
But
the
they
world.
won't come in because we didn't have the moral authority to go there to begin with.
Okay, you keep saying the same thing over again, and you're not letting me finish my thought. My solution would be to provide a stronger multinational security force in Iraq.
How are you going to get the nations to join in without a new president?
Well, you know what?
You need a new president, don't you?
No, we don't need a new president. We just
You
need
think
to keep
that
working
England,
diplomacy.
that was the last ally with us...
You keep using the same rhetoric.
My question is, you do too. You say Europe is going to magically agree to
Europe is
support
not
George
going
W. Bush. What do we have to give Europe to do
So
that?
what you're saying is the only reason why Europe is staying out, they're going to wait for the next president before they step in and help?
Absolutely.
Well, isn't that a little bit selfish on their part?
Not at all, because what they feel is that this president lied to them, tricked them, and lied to the American people.
Well, then we'll just
I don't blame them. If someone lies to me and tricks me into a war...
then I want to see who
now,
the
maybe
first...
if we impeach
I'm
Bush,
looking
maybe then
forward
we'd have
to
a
seeing
chance.
the Democrat candidate who says, I volunteer to surrender.
Surrender to whom? The Shiites
Iraq.
or the Sunnis?
Whichever one he wants to, or she.
Well, I don't want to know who you support in the war.
I certainly...
The Shiites or the Sunnis, because that's the war that's going on.
I support Iraq. I don't support any
Iraq.
one particular...
You support
do
putting
not support
American
any one
troops in the
particular
middle
religion.
of people shooting at each other.
I do not support any one particular religion in Iraq, just like I do not support any one particular religion here in the United States.
Don't you see? They're going to fight each
And
other
I am
until one of them
hopeful
wins.
that through democracy and through time and through
Democracy.
teaching that those same
Tell me
different
a single
religious
civil
sects
war.
it will over time. Did you think our own civil war was easy?
You know how,
Was there any
our own
wars
Civil War
easy?
ended? It ended when basically virtually every Southern male was dead. It ended when basically, obviously I support the Union cause, but it took overwhelming force. That's how civil wars end, until people are beaten to a pulp. That's how they end. In fact, it's interesting if you look
we need
at
a
history.
stronger force in Iraq, and this is where
Well,
I
how
think
can
you
we
and I
convince
agree.
the Shiites and Sunnis to change their
This is where I
minds?
go back to we're suffering from the post-Vietnam syndrome, and there was a fellow by the name of Rick Harrington who wrote an op-ed about this in 2001, shortly after September 11th, and in there he said, if we go to war, whether it's Afghanistan or it's Iraq, the people of the United States must maintain a will for victory, not just through the battle itself, but through establishing the democracy. Because
Let me suggest
he was a Vietnam vet, and he felt very strongly that we withdrew and we didn't follow up. And you know
Let me
what?
suggest you there's a
He's
great way to-
absolutely right.
He is, and let me tell you something.
He's
the way,
absolutely
the way
right.
you
We're
get America
losing
to support
our
a war,
will to win.
right. And you know why? Because we were lied to.
Okay.
Let me tell you, if a president wants to continue a war for 6, 7, 8, 10 years, there is a way to do it.
You're thinking
Tell
we're
the
gonna
truth
lose.
to the American people. In Afghanistan,
I
we
believe-
know the truth,
I
and
believe
Americans
President-
support the war in Afghanistan. In Vietnam, we were lied to.
Okay, I
Gulf of
believe
Tonkin resolution,
President
we were
Bush
lied to in
told
Iraq.
the truth. I believe President Bush
really?
is an honest man and a truthful man.
And you believe that Saddam Hussein was getting weapons out of Niger?
I do believe.
Do you believe Condoleezza Rice,
we have
nuclear bomb over?
Can I finish a thought?
Well, you're telling me the president told us the truth, but you're not responding to what the president said to get us into war.
Okay, what I am saying
there
is
WMDs
we
in
had
Iraq?
faulty intelligence. It is clear.
We had cherry-picked intelligence.
That could very well be.
By the President of the United States.
Not only by the President, not by the
Condoleezza
President.
Rice, Jane
No.
Oliver.
There was a big discrepancy between the CIA, the
We'll go on for
Defense.
hours, but I'm afraid our time is up. I hope you enjoyed the Inside Scoop and our discussion. As strong as it was, tune in next Sunday for another edition of the Inside Scoop.